nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Bucs fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by Lee Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
Howdy ho, howdy hey, how the hell is everybody? Welcome into another edition of our Saturday Showdown Weekend of Football Kickoff Show. Apologies for being about 10 minutes later, so technical difficulties in 2024 seem to never get easier, but nonetheless, Tampa Tones here will be joined by other Buccaneers as well. I think J-Lo went missing for a minute, but he'll be back in the fold here. But meanwhile, we are joined by a great friend of the shows nowadays, a great fellow football mind from the world of Detroit. And for those that forget, for those that remember, the Bucs and Lions do have a little bit of a frenemy history to go back to the NFL, NFC Central, I should say, way back in the day. As Jacko says, morning, all morning to you, Jacko. Thanks for joining us. But we are joined by a great football mind, and I was on their podcast earlier this week. Really fun time. We're going to leave the link in the bio. We previewed the game over there on the Talking Grit podcast. It's a Detroit Lions podcast. Really fun time. So excited to continue our partnership today with the great Jason over at Talking Grit, the Detroit Lions podcast. Jason, long time no talk, brother. How you doing?
I know, it's been so long, man. What's happened in your world?
Too much, brother. Just living the dream. Again, apologies for being a little late, my friend, but kind of let the people know watching right now where they could keep up with you, your podcast. You guys have a great pod. I know your partner couldn't make it tonight, which stinks because he was awesome as well, but we'll rekindle in the future with both you guys.
That's all right. He doesn't know as much as me, so you got the right partner. So don't worry about it. No, seriously, Jacob's great. It is sad that he can't make it. You can find us, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. We are also have a YouTube channel right now. It's just audio only. We're not as sophisticated as you, Tampa, but we'll get there with your expertise, and I'll ask you a bunch of questions, so we'll get there one day.
Hey, you guys are great, man. I listened to that thing and I'm like, damn, this sounds like a podcast that's been 10 years under the wrap already. I love your guys' little audios and whatnot. Drinking from a Michigan mug as well. So before you get out of here, we'll ask you your quick thoughts before you leave about Michigan, as we do talk a little college football as well. So we love to have you, brother, whether it's Jason or his partner. We're excited, even though his partner's not as knowledgeable, but we'll save that one.
No,
We'll make sure when he listens to this, that's edited out, even though it's live. So I guess we're screwed regardless, but what can you do? But hey, I'm always here for you, brother. Again, it was awesome, and I will link it. I love those old school podcasts, man. Video is still cool, but if I ever listen to a podcast, for the most part, it's still, throw it on the radio, throw it on the old speakers, and you don't have to see my type of face that way either then. So, that's what we love about it. J-Lo, glad to have you, brother. I know you're excited to talk with Jason over at Talking Grit, so it'll be a fun time today, brother. How you feeling about the Bucs, about your Florida Gators, and everything in between, brother? I like the jersey. Looking good, my man.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for coming on, Jason. I enjoyed listening on your pod the other day. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And like I said, I like chopping it up with with other team, other fans, and stuff like that. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you had somebody famous, Jason Momoa, the actor in your neighborhood right now? You ran to meet him or what?
It's crazy. Like, there's a bunch of cars like blocking driveways and stuff by the liquor store by my house. I guess he signed off. I guess he runs like a vodka thing or something like that. So I didn't see him, of course, but there were just so many people, and I was trying to go to the store and I couldn't get out. They were blocking my way, so I had to go make my way down there and be like, "Hey, man, you want me to get some Momoa autograph vodka bottle, man? Put me through drama. So they said they'll see what they can do.
Hey,
So
well, the
what
real
can you do?
reason, I think the real reason people were lined up where they know you're about to be on a pod. They're ready for the Buccaneers Saturday showdown with the great Jason from Talking Grit. And we're going to be talking a whole lot of grit. J-Lo, I know you listened to the Talking Grit pod that I was on earlier this week. I was very impressed with how it's set up, with how it's ran. These guys do a great job, don't they?
Yes, they did. Very good job. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes, listening as much, but I actually sat and listened. It was, quite enjoyable. You'll know how to ask the right questions. Definitely put the pressure a little bit too. That's why I'm glad Tones was on, not me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had the right guy on, right? Just like we left Jacob
Mm.
on, we got the right guy. But no, I I got a lot of compliments on that show from on YouTube. Just like it was very evident that you were very knowledgeable. We actually had to cut like almost half of what the interview just because it he was too knowledgeable. So we had to take out the best parts, which was tough to decipher, which was the best because it was also good. But yeah, it was perfect, and we're still working on our format. That was the only second preview podcast that we had done, so it's encouraging to hear that you liked what you heard.
Oh, absolutely. You're off to a good start for the one thing. And plus, you got a good season for y'all, man. I mean, your roster's loaded. You got a good thing. I love Coach Campbell. He's a great coach. I love his motivation in the locker room, busting kneecaps. You got to love it. And then, of course, Jared Goff, happy for him. After getting dealt by LA Rams, thinking he was going to go into a bad team, but he helped, create a good football team. To me, probably the top three team in the NFC.
Yeah, we'd like to think so. Going to what you're talking about with Jared Goff, when he came, the national media and even me personally thought this is a stopback quarterback to get. We got those 2 first round picks in that draft. Thought we're gonna either pick one or use those picks to trade up to get someone. But slowly and surely, Jared Goff turned into a city favorite. Turned into one of my favorites. And we went up. Last week we went up against our previous quarterback Stafford again. And so that's bittersweet because I always liked Stafford. I thought he didn't get enough credit until he left Detroit. And I that was a tough thing for us to see because we kind of rooted for him a lot. I mean, I did because the lines were still down. I didn't root, I wasn't a Rams fan all of a sudden, but I was a Stafford fan. I was hoping he'd be successful. But it was hard watching national broadcasts where people gushing over him when they weren't saying the same things when he was with the Lions, even though he's very much the same player. So that was tough.
It
Yeah,
sounds familiar, Tones. Kind of like how the Bucs were at the bottom of the barrel, not talking about our guys like Levante David.
mm-hmm. There's a lot of similarities in terms of Tampa and Detroit's, I should say, recent history a little bit because both franchises kind of went through a great period of struggle as we are joined by Olivia. Hey, welcome, Jason. She's welcoming Jay, even though she's a Packer fan. So we got a Packer fan.
Oh, whoa,
Welcome.
whoa.
Fighting words
I didn't
right
know
there.
I was against a frenemy here. That's not a frenemy over there. All right.
The gloves are off. Let's
That's
go.
right. Let's do it.
Bucks
No.
Life says, "Hey, Jason." So, Jason, you're getting a lot of warm welcomes right now,
All
brother.
right. Good. I love it.
Eric
I'm an
says, "How
Packer
feel about Bucks matchup?" We'll get into that in a minute, Eric. I do want to catch on to, and then Christopher Cole says, "Morning, everyone." I think Jason brought up something that I do want to talk about quick. Jason, first and foremost, kind of just tell the people how you formed your podcast over there, Talking Grit, how that came about. And secondly, I think you brought up an excellent point, and J-Lo kind of reiterated it as well. Stafford's a guy who very highly respected, and I've always been a fan of his. When he was in Detroit, he was a tough son of a gun. That mother trucker was out there busting his ass. I remember that game like yesterday. I believe it was Lions Browns when his arm was hanging like a loaf of bread and he could barely even move that thing. Brought him back in the game. I think he led them to victory. I think that was his rookie season or his second year, one of the two.
It was very early. So like that whole situation. Do you want to talk on that now or you want me to get
Yeah,
I could
yeah. Give
okay.
us your thoughts on that, and then kind of
So
just feed into how your pod started as well, brother.
yeah. So Stafford was actually mic'd up for that game, which was very fortunate. So, the Lions we're driving at the end of the game. They threw up a long pass, ended up getting a pass interference on it, but Stafford had ran around a little bit and got basically pile drived into the ground. I think he separated his shoulder. It was his non-throwing shoulder, but still separated shoulder. He limps over to the sideline. He's on the ground, and again, he's mic'd up, so you're hearing him groan and just how much pain he's in. The Browns, for whatever reason, called a timeout, and because Stafford couldn't go back in until they did that. Lines were out of timeouts.
Right.
There was nothing back. They called a timeout. Stafford is groaning on the sideline. Then you hear him. They announced the timeout. He said, "I can go in and throw if you need me. I can go in and throw." He gets up, throws a dart to Pettigrew, our tight end at the time. Touchdown, Lions win. He immediately, his non-throwing arm, just slings down, and he says, he's mouthing, "I can't feel it." And you talk about toughness. I mean, that Detroit is a gritty city. We're talking grit. I'll lead right into that. And that was the definition of grit. And it was just very fortunate he was mic'd up because it would have been tough regardless. I mean, you would have saw how much pain he was in afterwards, but just to hear the whole thing was just amazing. So, but as far as talking grit, my partner Jacob, we actually work together. We've been talking Lions, all day at work, and just through a series of events, another podcast I really liked kind of got shut down. I felt a huge void, and it wasn't like, oh, we can replace them. It was just like I'm missing something and I need to replace it. And just on a whim, I called Jacob and said, "Hey, let's you want to do this? You want to do a podcast?" And half expecting him to laugh me out of, the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
To my surprise, he was just as into it as I was. And, we talked about it for a month before we lit up our first episode. Did a trial run, didn't show it to anyone except for close family like my wife and stuff like that. Not that you can, they're going to say it's good regardless, right? It's hard. So it wasn't until we got out and heard, people that were non-biased to tell us how much they liked it that we started to get a little confidence. But we've been very fortunate through a series of events, through some well-timed interviews, and then stuff like interviewing you, Tampa, and we had another Rams podcaster on the week before to do that game, and we've just been very lucky getting knowledgeable guests that one of our comments, I think I sent it to you, Tampa, was knowledgeable guests that aren't overt homers that can give you information about the game. And you know you and I, Tampa, we both going to root for our team, right? We're going to root hard for our team, but we can respect the opponent, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I come in peace for. So, if I can provide insight to the game, make it more enjoyable, things to look at, that's what I hope to do today. And I was glad you certainly did that for me when on our previous podcast. So, love that.
Jason, I think you hit on a lot of good points there. First and foremost, some people, and it is hard, it's tough, but some people just can't seem to, when you are podcasting, nothing wrong with being a homer or whatever, but, it's always nice being at least realistic. But at the end of the day, as you said, we're both fans. We both see the game of football. We're here to respect each other, help each other grow, man. I hate the podcasts out there that are so at people's necks trying to weed it out, drowning out the competition. It's like, man, help grow the show. And you do that by bringing on each other's knowledgeable guests and other podcasts and stuff like that, talk through the game. So really excited to have you here. And that's cool, man. That Stafford story gets me hyped every dang time I hear it, never a dull moment that goes by. But Detroit definitely grit. And I'll say this about the podcast too. It is a big deal. A lot of people that don't have a podcast or thinking about starting one up, it is a commitment, I will say that, but it's a fun time, man. It's like, therapy for sports. You're talking through it with people who are knowledgeable and have fun as well. So it's a good thing to me, and really excited that we have a good Detroit podcast to get our hands on now whenever we do, because it seems like more and more we're linking up with the Lions nowadays more than ever. So
Yeah.
this will be a fun little friendship we carry out through the years, I'm sure. J-Lo, we've got lucky. We got the command this last week. Now we got Talking Grit this week, but grow the show, right? Keep it up.
Absolutely. Spread the love, man. We all love the game of football. We may not always agree on things, but at the same time, we're fans of the game, and I'm all about, keep it as somewhat friendly, talk a little trash, here and there, but not to where you want to hurt somebody, because that's just ridiculous. But yeah, we've been on fire, man. We got Bad to Bad podcast, man. We love collaborating with the other fans, getting knowledge from them, learning about some of their stories and who their favorite player is, or how they became a fan of the team. So we love it, man.
Yeah, and Jason is here joining us from Talking Grit. We're going to get more into the game here in a minute. Cleve and me, morning to Joe from Cleve and me. He's usually on our Saturday show, the back half of it, talking all things gambling, fantasy, but he's in a wedding today. So, much like your partner, Jason, we got some wedding obligations on our hands as well. Now we'll get into some of the comments before we get into more of the good stuff. Do you think Bucs win tomorrow? What chance win tomorrow? 50-50 chance. It's tough because we're banged up, and Joshua Hayes got ruled out. What was encouraging, I thought, was Zion McCollum seemingly leaning towards playing, barring something tragic. But, we lose Josh Hayes. We gain Zion McCollum. We're still banged up on the D-line, seemingly. So I would have thrown this one. I still like the Bucs' chances, but I would have liked it a lot more, J-Lo, if all these injuries didn't start surfacing. And a team like the Lions, they have enough weapons where they can really try and put the pedal to the metal on a secondary, on a D-line that's banged up a little bit.
Yeah, it really sucks, man. Those injuries are really going to do some damage tomorrow's game. I think if we had all our players together against the Lions, I think we can go toe-to-toe. But right now, it's up in the air, I mean, I'm glad we're getting Zion McCollum back. That's going to be huge. We're really going to need him when it comes to guarding Jameson Williams, because that dude's just a stud. He's starting to come on. But Luke Gadecki, him being out, that one really hurts. Aiden Hutchinson's definitely going to have a field day chasing after Baker Mayfield. So we'll see what the new offensive coordinator does. We'll see if he game plans, gets the ball out quickly, go after the DBs of the Lions. I think that's probably their weak point, in my opinion. But then again, that front seven, getting out to the quarterback, they're pretty good, in my opinion. And we'll see. That's all I can really say. But I think the game will be interesting. I'm not going to say we're going to lose. I'm not saying we're going to win, but it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Lions got only a couple guys ruled out, one ruled doubtful. We'll get into that here in a second. Jacko says, what's up with Kalijah? Can't see y'all. It seems like injury will be a yearly thing. Well, actually, Jacko, last year was his other calf. This year is his other calf. So, it's not like the same injury actually reoccurred. It is concerning that he's hurt again, but the good news is it's not the same calf as last year. Well, good news, bad news, I don't know, because, but regardless, at least I don't think the same calf injury is going to occur yearly. Jason, I see a couple guys ruled us out for the Lions. Isaiah Williams, not too big of a deal if you ask me there. You guys are still pretty loaded in the receiver room. Marcus Davenport, he seems to be doubtful, so he's probably not going to suit up, it seems. Then Melifonwu is out as well, your guys' safety. And then it seems like you got a couple questionable. The biggest one, Penny Sewell, but I imagine he plays, and I imagine Jameson Williams, who's questionable, plays as well, right?
Yeah, so Penei Sewell, a couple of the beat writers that I follow very closely, one of them that was on our shows, Justin Rogers, has been told personally by Penei that he's good. So unless there's a coaching decision or a fallback, something happens, I think for sure he's gonna play. The safety that you mentioned, Melifonwu, that's out. He didn't play last week either. He has had an injury history with the Lions, but the last 6 games last year, he was like one of the top 10 PFF graded safeties last year. He was just like kind of all over the field, but Brian Branch really kind of supplanted him in training camp this year. And so yes, it stinks that he's out, but it's not as devastating as it could have been like late last year. Isaiah Williams didn't play a snap last week. He's an undrafted free agent wide receiver. He just took off in training camp, so we had to keep him. So he's out, but didn't play any snaps last week. The only reason that could hurt a little bit is because of Jameson Williams being questionable, but he practiced, limited practice on Friday. I'm expecting him to be a go. Kirby Joseph also practiced. He went out to practice on Wednesday, then came back during practice, and then practices a little bit on Thursday and Friday. I'm assuming he's going to be back. The big thing that's coming back from our injury report is DJ Reader. DJ Reader is going to come back. And so, Davenport's out, but Reader's basically going to come in. We're going to move Levi Onwuzurike to the outside. Him and Davenport teamed up for a sack. They were only sack against Stafford last week. I forgot Hutch had one. They split Davenport and Levi split a sack, but Levi had a really good training camp after being injured last few years. So I really want Davenport because I want to collapse one side of the pocket and force Baker to Hutch, but hopefully Levi can hold the edge. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, Reader's a real good threat up the middle for you guys. He's a guy who could solidify the front. You build through the trenches, and he's one of those pieces that you love building through the trenches with. Just an incredible piece. Speaking of incredible, Detroit's getting some love. Cleveland Me says, I went to Detroit for SummerSlam, and I enjoyed the downtown layout after everyone said, why the heck you going? I gave it a solid B as a town atmosphere. Jason, I want to get your quick thoughts on Detroit. I think, I went there as a kid and I went there last year. I had a blast last year. I think it's really growing as a city. I think it's really fun place, atmosphere. That Tin Roof Bar is a real fun time right across from, is it still Comerica Park or did they rename it?
It's Comerica Park. So yeah.
Fun time though.
Oh, they moved the casinos down there. Restaurants started to come up. The Tigers started to get really good starting 06. A lot of the blight that was around there started to get tore down. There's all brand new condos up there. And then they tore down, there was more blight. They put in Little Caesars Arena, which is basically right across the street. So for those of you that, never been to Detroit, Ford Field, there is a street in between that and Comerica Park. They're right next to each other. And then there's like a parking lot and then a major road, and then Little Caesars is there. So they are like within 5 minutes of walking to each other. This week, Tigers are in a playoff hunt. They play the Comerica Park Detroit Tigers, and they're playing at home, and the Lions are playing tomorrow. So it is going to, you talk about having fun in Detroit. It's going to be, I know this is a football podcast, but the Tigers almost threw a perfect game last night. They got to the 8th inning, walked a guy, or 7th or 8th. I think it was 8th. And then in the 9th inning, they still had the no-hitter going 8 2/3. Gunnar Henderson hit a triple. And so it was, my father-in-law was there. I would have had a really good story, but it was, Tigers end up winning. We're only 2.5 games out of the wild card. So in Detroit, it is very special time. We had the draft here earlier this year, and very well run. I was super impressed. We're having 700,000 people down there. I brought my family up there, felt totally safe. End up meeting Amon-Ra St. Brown while we were up there. My kids were jacked about that. It was just very well run. Loved it. And I can't say good enough things about Detroit. It's a totally different thing than it was, I'd say, 20 years ago even. When I go there as a kid, you had to go in certain areas. Got a little safer, and now you can go down there and hang out and have a really good time. So yeah, it's the atmosphere has totally changed. I love it.
Yeah, and I love it as well. After some comments, I'll share my thoughts as well. Richard says, just waking up here on the West Coast. Good morning, fellas. Good morning, Richard. Thanks for joining. I know it's early on the West Coast. I think it's like 8 a.m. by you. So thank you so much for jumping in there. That's awesome stuff. Bat says, sup, Bucs fans. Sup, Bat. How we doing, Batty? Good to always see our guy Bat in the chat. Good thing about these injuries, starters are not serious, and we'll be back. And that's, if you guys missed it, I was on Talking Grit podcast earlier this week with Jason as well, and I kind of reiterated the same thing on there. I said, hey, not that I ever like injuries, but if you're going to get these injuries, have them at the beginning of the year opposed to the end of the season, and have them not linger on, and kind of get these young guys' feet wet, trial by fire. A lot of undrafted free agents from last year and this year are going to be playing pivotal roles in tomorrow's game. So you got to see what you got in those guys eventually, trial by fire there. But yeah, Jason, kind of to reiterate what you said, I thought Detroit did a hell of a lot better with the draft than some other cities that you've seen out there. Not to blast Nashville. I think Detroit did a way better job than when Nashville had the draft. It looked like, Nashville, it looked like a freaking tub of toothpaste ready to blow the lid off that thing. You couldn't even maneuver in there. At least Detroit seemed to make it respectable in terms of maneuvering. And then, Comerica Park's still beautiful. I went there last year because we went to wrestling in Ford Field last year. So then the next day we stayed around, went to the Tigers game against the Rays. Just a fun time, man. It's a really fun area. And honestly, Detroit price, if the ticket prices weren't so damn expensive these days, I'd easily drive down there because it's only 4.5 hours from me being relocated to Chicago these days. So I'm not too far off in terms of, being right next to Detroit, but I'll make my way back when, prices need to drop a little bit though, but I don't blame him for being crazy. That's how, when we had Tom Brady, same type of thing, so I could see Lions fans just really, really loving the team right now. Can't blame him for that, right, J-Lo?
No, you can't. Like I said, it looked really lit over there during the draft. I remember watching it with Tones up in Chicago, and I was like, wow, incredible. I'm not really a big fan of like totally big crowds like that, but if you're saying it's under control, it'll probably motivate me to go do something like that. It's definitely on my bucket list to go do like a draft day type thing. And then Comerica Park's on my bucket list. I'm hoping one day to travel up there, and cause I like traveling around ballparks and stuff like that myself. I've been to the Chicago White Sox ballpark, and then of course the Trop, about to be rebuilt and stuff, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, but it's on my bucket list. And like I said, I'm happy for the city of Detroit. Y'all guys been through a really rough time, just like we did, back in our time down days. So it's good you guys are definitely being recognized, looked at. Even the Red Wings, the hockey team, they're coming around too, if you want to talk all sports here. But for the most part, good for y'all, man.
Yeah, and actually last year, if I remember correctly, when the Bucs went to Detroit for the playoff game, I'm pretty sure the Lightning were playing the Red Wings at that point in time. So that was a crazy weekend.
They did.
You had the same exact day, both Tampa football and hockey teams playing the Red Wings and Lions. And then even though the first game in the regular season last year was being played in Tampa, the Lightning and Red Wings played that day in Detroit as well. So just kind of crazy, little bit of a crazy thing right there. Davenport's getting hate. He was a Saint, so not a lot of great things to say about a Saint, sadly. But he was always banged up in his time. He was a guy whose potential was like up there, and then he just couldn't stay on the field. It was like, wow, like crazy.
He ain't a little guy. He's a big dude. He's a big dude. And I've been to many Bucs games when he was a Saint. I saw him, lining up against our tackles. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, he is a big dude. J-Lo, we're going to get to some player matchups now on each side of the football as we are here live on the Buccaneers. We're about half hour in. The great J-Lo is on my side. Tampa Tones here, and we got a great guest, Jason from Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast, sitting down with us as well. We're going to get to player of the games. We're going to give one guy on each side of the ball who we think can be a game changer, a difference maker, who if they're on our team, we're excited about, or if they're against us, we're like, oh, damn, this guy might be one we got to circle up a little bit and whatnot. J-Lo, we'll start with you. One Lions guy and one Bucs guy to look out for in this weekend's big matchup.
Oof. Me first, huh? Tough one.
Throwing you in the fire, bro. It's like
I'm telling you, man, because Detroit's got talent, man. But I got to say St. Brown, man. I know he got held to, 3 catches last week. I think he's going to be somebody to really watch out for. We'll see what Jamel Dean does covering him, because obviously they're going to put Dean on him the whole time. That's on the Lions side. And on the Bucs side, Mike Evans versus Carlton Davis. I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I think CD's going to go in there, with a lot of, hype after what happened, getting traded to y'all. So that'll be fun. So give me St. Brown on the Lions side, and then Mike Evans on the Bucs side.
Yeah, we are joined also listening in, texting into the show, the great Mr. H, our Nebraska native. Hopefully Nebraska wins for you today. They had a great win against Colorado in Prime last week. So, Prime's like 2 bad losses away from probably just quitting, man. I mean, that guy is in a debacle. And, I loved Prime. I had his jersey when I was growing up when he was on the Ravens and all that stuff. But I don't know what the hell's going on over there. Low, thanks for joining us. I think they'll have Baker get the ball out quicker. Baker was actually number 2 last week in terms of getting the ball out. Jason, I know you brought that up towards the end of your show, as you and your co-host were, because he was saying, hey, last week Stafford was getting the ball out so quick, but you actually brought up a point where Baker was getting the ball out slightly quicker, I believe, last week than Stafford. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Next Gen Stats said, that stat can be a little misleading because
Yeah.
Baker was also scrambling a lot, so I don't believe those don't come time to throw. So, that could have drastically skewed that because he did have the ball a little bit longer, where Stafford was just getting rid of it. I mean, watching the game with the eye test, Stafford was getting the ball out quicker. However, that doesn't, I still worried about Baker getting rid of that ball. Cohen's setting up some really nice plays and getting his top guys open and early. So Lions will have to be ready for that.
Yeah, and Jason, speaking of Lions being ready for that, who's one guy you're watching on your sidelines this weekend who you think will, really be a benefit to the Lions' path to victory? And who's one guy from the 813 that's kind of from the Bucs that you kind of circle or maybe double circle and you go, hey, this is a guy we got to watch out for if we want to win?
Well, I mean, my man over here took both Evans and St. Brown. So why's he got to do that to me? St. Brown was my guy, and I still think he is that guy. He caught 3 passes for 13 yards last week. Amon-Ra is not a diva where he's going to be crying about getting the ball. After the game, people asked him. He, was very like, we won the game. That's all that matters. And there was plenty of opportunities that the ball just didn't get to him for various reasons. He slipped on one play. There was just other plays that even Jamo's big play that he threw over the top could have went to Amon-Ra too, because Amon-Ra was just as open on the other side. The safety just slid to Amon-Ra and left Jamo wide open. So that could have been a big play. You get that's 60 yards and a touchdown. No one's talking anything. With the Buccaneers injuries, that's just going to compound everything, and I think they're going to get the ball to Amon-Ra, and Amon-Ra seems to be a buck beater. So, sorry guys, but that's just the truth.
No, he is. We know he broke
he
all our defense's ankles last year.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he's a kryptonite, man. He's definitely a Buccaneer killer for sure, man. That dude he's a stud. I mean, I didn't really recognize him until we played him earlier in the season in a creamsicle game. And I was like, I don't buy this, St. Brown. Who is this guy? I watched him. I was like, oh, that's who that guy is.
well, going to the creamsicle game, that touchdown that he had where he went around our backup running back, because both of our, Jameer Gibbs and Montgomery were both hurt by this time. Craig Reynolds was in and blew up Carlton Davis and just like cleared out 2 of your guys and got that touchdown. And Amon-Ra had said that he was supposed to knife up because he caught it in the middle of the field. And generally you don't run backwards, right? You don't, but it was 3rd down. So he's like, I got nothing to lose. We're going to kick a field goal here anyways, and knifed around, and Craig Reynolds came out. And so, yeah, I don't want to I know this is a Buccaneers podcast, so I don't want to talk about that too much, but that was a really interesting play because now Carlton Davis is on us, right? And Craig Reynolds is still on our team. So we thought about that over the summer. Like, does Craig Reynolds remind him that he blew him up in that game? Because that was one heck of a block. That was like probably one of my favorite plays of all year last year. As far as on the Buccaneers, who I'm afraid of, who I think is going to have a good game. I know you mentioned Mike Evans. I mean, that's just a given, right? Mike Evans I don't care. He's just that dude. Right. Nice. But I'm having trouble between going with Baker or Godwin. With the injuries on your line, Baker scares me because he can scramble and maneuver out of it. That's why I think DJ Reader is going to be important because he can get pressure up the middle. If you can get pressure up the middle, that pushes him to Hutch on the other side. So I'm going to say Godwin is the one that I'm most afraid of. Him playing in the slot, man, he was a 3rd down machine for you guys last week. I watched that game a couple times just to see what was going on. That was one thing that just stuck out for me. And some of that might be the Commanders' defense is not very good, but he just they would run a lot of combinations with Godwin and Evans on the same side, and that's tough to defend. That's really tough, especially if you're in zone. That's a zone beater right there. So Godwin's who especially on third down, Lions better know where he's at on the field and be ready.
Yeah, and Chris Godwin, that's one great thing. He's always been really good, but one consistent he's always brought is his ability. I don't know what it is, but on third downs, it's like he steps it up a notch, or he just, is that Mr. Reliable factor on third downs to kind of bring him over the top. So, I mean, all great choices each of you made, without a doubt, in terms of, who to look out for and whatnot. Yeah, I'm going to name Aiden Hutchinson, though, because we do have Luke Godecki out this game, our right tackle. He popped up on the injury report Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, with the concussion. He was in concussion protocol, but didn't seem like that big of a deal because it kind of, tucked into the news until later in the week. But when an injury pops up later in the week, it's usually not a good sign. So when that did surface, I was afraid we'd be out with him. And now we are. Mr. H popping in the chat says, I'm here, fellas. How we doing? So good stuff. Yeah, I don't know. J-Lo, did you see that? I guess Dan Campbell said that Vita Vea, Frank Ragnow is pretty much going to handle Vita Vea this Sunday. So maybe a little motivation for Vita Vea there to be like, hey, let's go. And then BW, you asked what beer won. Tampa's own Cigar City Brewing Highlight is the official beer for the Buccaneers podcast and the Buck What You Heard podcast. As we did, Jason, we did some beer bracketology in the offseason to kind of, we started off listeners recommended beers, and I think we had 16, we put 16 beers in a bracket and we would taste test them, and then we came up with the winner. And now our listeners and us, whenever on game days or podcasts, we try and drink that beer if possible. So kind of a cool little thing we did this off season to kind of, grow the fandom together a little bit.
I like it. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, just little things like that you try and do to keep it up. Speaking of keep it up, we're gonna just go over a couple over-unders each side of the ball here. J-Lo, I'm going to ask you about Bucs over-unders. Jason, I'm going to ask you about Lions over-unders here. Just, some fun, not too serious. But for those listening, we're going to try and help you out just in case you do like to throw a little cheddar onto this game tomorrow. What game is fun without a little cheddar being thrown on it, right? No, they're all fun regardless, but little cheddar makes it better. We're going to cue the music while we get to our Bucs and Lions Bucs bets here. We call this segment Bucs bets, but we're going to throw the Lions in here too. So, J-Lo, we'll start with you. We're going to keep it simple on this one. Okay. We're just doing Buccaneers total points over under. Tomorrow, Bucs over under is 21.5 points. Do you think the Bucs get more than 21.5 points, J-Lo, over under?
I think we will, even though we're down a tackle. But I can see Baker, like just said, moving the ball, getting out of the stats and all that. But yeah, I definitely see more than 21 points out of the Bucs tomorrow.
Jason, Lions are sitting at 29.5 points for their total over and under tomorrow. Do you think the Lions get to 30?
Well, I will be there tomorrow, so I'm hoping that they will be. Yeah, I'm a season ticket holder, luckily. That's the only way I could afford to go to any games, to be honest with you. But I'm going to say over on that. Buccaneers defense is good when healthy, but your secondary is decimated right now. So and you got, like we talked about earlier, motivated St. Brown. So I'm going with the over on that.
Yeah, how long have you been a Lions season ticket holder for?
Last year was my first year. My boys, I have two boys, 9 and 13, and we just started getting the age where they were following it. And we went to a game previous that we went, before they were starting on this amazing run. My boys fell in love with it, along with fantasy football and stuff like that. And I finally talked my wife into doing it. And so, if that was a big thing, I was talking my wife into it. I'm like, how, we got to do this as like a vacation. We just do it out. Well, now my wife is looking at Instagram stuff and trying to figure out what uniforms the Lions are wearing on Sunday. So I don't have to convince her anymore. And so now season tickets will be a perpetuate. We'll just keep doing it. So.
That's
good
awesome.
For you, man. Good negotiation.
I got an awesome wife, awesome kid, and sometimes you just get lucky, right? It just happens.
Hey man,
Oh,
yeah, I'm happy for you. That's a happy wife, happy life. So she's happy. That's awesome stuff. As we are joined by the great Jason from Talking Grit, Detroit Lions. Great podcast. Go check them out. J-Lo, anytime touchdown scorer, Trey Palmer times 340. So if you bet $10 on Palmer to get a touchdown and he does, you'd win $34. He had a pretty bad game last week for his standards. Do you think he finds his way to the end zone this week?
with how McMullen got involved last week, I don't see it happening. I hope he waits till pissed off like he did last year, and go off, but we'll see. I mean, but I don't think so. I don't see him seeing the end zone, so I wouldn't take that bet.
Jason, out of these guys, they're all heavy favorites. They're all really big odds. Jahmyr Gibbs is minus 180 to score a touchdown. David Montgomery minus 167. And Amon-Ra St. Brown minus 137. Out of those three guys, who do you like the most to get into the end zone tomorrow? Gibbs, Montgomery, or St. Brown? Who would you put your money on?
Wow. Montgomery's always the safest bet because if we get down in the goal line, they just keep feeding him. But I'm going to go with Amon-Ra. I think that he gets in the end zone this week. So out of all those three, I take Amon-Ra. If I do 2 or 3, if you want to parlay it, go with Montgomery and St. Brown on that.
Yeah, I find it hard to, but again, I would love if we held St. Brown in check, but I don't think he's going to be held out of the stat sheet 2 games in a row. Now, as Jason alluded to, doesn't mean he had an awful game last week. He was open on a couple plays where the Lions alluded to go elsewhere, but at the end of the day, his stat sheet ain't going to stay quiet back-to-back weeks, odds are. So we just got to try and limit him to only 1 touchdown if possible. J-Lo, Baker Mayfield's over-under passing yards tomorrow sits at 263.5. Do you think he gets to 264?
Oh, that's over all day. It's over. Like I said, I say he'll definitely go over that. I think he's going to be throwing the ball a lot more, especially doing the little short passes to Rachaad White, who could be lethal out in the open. Run the ball on them. I'll see it happen. So give me Baker Mayfield tossing that ball, slinging it.
Jason, your quarterback now, the great Jared Goff. His over-under is only about 10 yards higher, seemingly. His is sitting at 272.5 for Jared Goff. What are you going with?
So if you look at what he's averaged against the Buccaneers since Todd Bowles taken over, it's like 330 something. Mm-hmm. He's very good against the blitz, especially if you don't get interior pressure, just like a lot of quarterbacks, but especially him, you don't get interior pressure. And with your banged up secondary, I'm going to go with the over on this. But again, I don't want to be, I'm trying to be respectful of the Buccaneers, but the injuries is tough. I think that's going to play a big deal. And we had trouble running on you guys last year, especially in a regular season game. Now, Clancy being out, that may affect that. Goff just went off when in the creamsicles. So I'm going to go the over on it.
Yeah, now I remember the crazy stat on, the Jared Goff ever since Bowles arrived. It's just crazy. So, Goff, I do like that on his end. He's been a buck killer ever since Bowles got here, which is kind of ironic because Bowles has really done a nice job with this defense. J-Lo, Mike Evans over under receiving yards is 68.5. Do you think Mike Evans gets to 69 receiving yards?
Over, baby. Over. I can't wait for that matchup. Over. I'm sorry. Listen, I don't want to disrespect the Lions either, but Carlton Davis is going to have a long day. Because he used to practice with these guys. They say, he got the DB room, telling them, hey, how they play. Well, we know how he plays too. So it's, vice versa. But I say over for sure for Mike Evans.
Jason, Sam Laporta, 49.5 over under receiving yards. Do you think he gets to 50?
I'm going to go under on that. I think we talked about that a little bit on our pod. Your linebacker is going to cover him pretty well. So, we're going to look for matchups. So I'm going to go with the under on Laporta.
Yeah, I think Levante and Laporta is going to be a great matchup. I think Laporta will nab, a good amount of balls, but I don't think any of them are too lengthy in coverage because Levante just doesn't let that happen too often. So I like that. Chris Godwin, J-Lo, over under 62.5 receiving yards.
Over for sure. I think he's gonna be the one that puts up more yardage than Mike, but I think they both go over for sure. So over for Chris.
Jason Amonra St. Brown sitting at 84.5 receiving yards is his over under. Higher than Evans and Godwin, but still an obtainable number to me.
Yeah, I said on our podcast that was my grit guarantee. That's our segment on our podcast. I said he'd go over 100, so I'm gonna go over on that.
Yeah, I think he gets there as well. And then one more each here for receiving yards. J-Lo, Rashad White, 26.5.
Oh yeah, over. He's gonna get that yardage easily.
And then Jason, for you, we'll go Jamison Williams over under 46.5.
I'm gonna go over. I mean, he is injured, but one catch could do it. So I'm gonna go over.
I was literally gonna say he's one catch away from getting, because his stat line's like 2 or 3 catches, 90 yards, and like a touchdown or something. So intrigued by that. Total rushing yards. We'll start with the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, 47.5 total rushing yards. Jason.
47.5. Did you say? I'm sorry.
Yep, 47.5.
Ooh, out of the two, I really feel like Jahmyr might have a better time getting the outside. I guess, let me ask you a question. You're undrafted free agent cornerbacks, because I think it's going to be bounced to the outside. How are they about getting in the run game? That would inform my decision as far as pick over or under on that.
They're pretty physical in the run game. Christian Izien and Funderburk should be holding down the outside pretty well. So they seem like they're good run stopping cats, at least to the eye test.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under on this one just because they got Montgomery back there too. That's a really good number, but I'm gonna say under.
Richard says, is there an over-under for Jamel Dean dropped interceptions? Yeah, he does drop a lot on our side of the ball. Damn it, that's
true. He made me so mad last year in the playoffs, man. Right in his hands, I'm like, oh, Dino, you're killing me. He always says, don't make a scene. It's just Dean. I'm making a bit scene because you should have made that catch.
Mr. H says 24-21 Bucs. J-Lo, we're not going to give you a running back. We're going to give you Baker Mayfield over under 8.5 rushing yards in tomorrow's game.
Yeah, that's over. He's probably going to scramble 2 or 3 times. Let's just hope that he don't drop his shoulder like Tua did and get the damn concussion. That's the problem with Baker. He doesn't know when to slide. You got to slide, my man. Please. We can't afford to lose you, bro.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Now we get to special teams. They play a factor as well. Total kicking points by the player. Lions kicker Jake Bates, his over-under is 7.5 total points. Jason, that would be like 2 field goals and 2 extra points, something along those lines. Do you think the leg of Bates gets over 7.5 points?
Your Tampa Bay Red Zone defense is pretty good, so I'm going to say over on that.
Yeah, I think Lions could get a couple field goals for sure. And yeah, Bucs do bend but don't break on a handful of drives, so it creates more kicking opportunities. J-Lo, Buccaneers kicker Chase McLaughlin over 6.5 points in this one.
Over.
So we're thinking this is going to be a high-scoring game based on all of this. Now we'll get to a couple of defensive ones, and then we'll head to our score predictions and final words for the great Jason. Total sacks by the player, Aiden Hutchinson, over half a sack. Jason, he's pretty much even money. You bet $10, you'd win $10. Pretty good in that with the right tackle out. What say you?
I'm going to say over. Hutchinson's been talking all offseason about being more consistent. He was very inconsistent last year. He'd have like a monster, like towards the end of the year, he was killing it, getting like 2 or 3 sacks a game, but he went a long stretch without getting it. So I think, especially with Goddard out, or Gadecki out, I'm going to go with the over on this.
J-Lo, these guys have the same odds. Yaya Diaby, Vita Vea. They have times 275 each to get over half a sack. So if you bet $10 on either of them, you'd win $27.50. J-Lo, you going with Yaya or you going with Vea?
I say Yaya. I think they're going to double team Vita for sure. I say Yaya, comes home free. And don't sleep on JTS either, man. I think we'll definitely hopefully get some pressure on Goff. That's our problem. We just can't get pressure on the guy.
Jason, Alex Anzaloi, over under 8.5 total tackles. He's plus money, so if you bet 10 on it, you'd win $10.50.
Yeah, he had 13 tackles last week. He had 3 tackles for loss. I'm we'll get this in final thoughts about your guys' screen game. I'm thinking he's going to go over on that. I bet the over on that.
J-Lo, last one for our Bucs bet segment. Over under Levante David, same amount, 8.5 tackles. If you put $10 on that, you'd win about $8 back.
I say over. I think Levante is going to be all over the place, chasing down the running backs on the screens and all that stuff. Definitely going to Sam Laporta. I think Laporta's going to get some catches for sure. Not big ones, like short catches, but I see Levante all over the place. So I say over.
MH says a lot of points for two defensive head coaches. I think he was saying that to Richard's score comparison 41-40, but you never know, right? Because last year's playoff game was pretty high scoring in terms of they kind of got going rhythm wise there late. And again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I'm pretty glad Devin White's out of the picture. I think Bucs will actually play better against the Lions without a guy like Devin White, only because Devin White is he's a lost soul, but we could have a whole special on how his career kind of fell apart. The great Ed Rabasa joins us on Facebook. Tampa's own realtor David Ferrara joining us on Facebook as well. So we love to hear that. It's time for score predictions though, fellas. J-Lo, we'll start with you. Bucs Lions, what say you?
So I definitely think it's going to be a shootout. I definitely see us keeping up with the Lions offensively, trying to get the ball, try to keep scoring. Give me Lions 31, Bucs 28.
J-Lo going Lions 31, Bucs 28, Lions victory. Jason, where are you heading in this one? Detroit, Tampa, 1:00 Eastern time this Sunday.
I am going to go very close. I'm going to go 33-27. I think Lions are up 33. Baker leads them to a late touchdown to get that up to 27. So I'm going to go 33-27.
Yeah, that ain't a bad guess. Both of those are very reasonable score predictions, and these things are never easy because you do want to get these right, or at least as good as you can in terms of the score predictions. I do want to say,
I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I don't want us losing, but that's just what I see. Just so
I want to say real quick the announcers for the game as well, because the Bucs don't play on CBS for a while, but I believe we have the same as last week, Kevin Kugler, Daryl Johnston and company. So Daryl Johnston is a Bucs hater. He was a fullback. He was a little jealous of when Mike Elstad kind of outshined all his stats and whatnot. But we got Daryl Moose Johnson and Kevin Kugler. So same announce crew as last week, Bucs fans. Buckle up. They are Bucs haters, which Jason, you'll find out tomorrow. You'll see Daryl Johnson making really biased comments about the game just because, he was a good fullback, but I think he was a little jealous of Elstad back in the day for whatever reason, just never quite got it. Jason, before your final word, and we let you bounce out of here, just give us a rundown. Michigan football. I seen you drinking that coffee cup. Current state of the Michigan Wolverines as we kind of go from NFL to some college talk here.
Oh man, last week was a tough game to swallow. I was gone by halftime just because I couldn't stomach it anymore. But I took my boys to the Fresno State game. That game was closer than it should have been. Michigan just lost too much, and new head coach. Everyone just jump shipped after the national championship. You could say all you want about the Connor Stallions type, calls, but you're going to lose your starting quarterback, your starting running back, your whole defense and your head coach. It's going to be hard to keep up. So and they have a really tough schedule, especially with a lot of the Pac-10 teams coming in, to the Big Ten this year, USC, Oregon, and Texas played, and it's going to be too much. Not a great year for us to have a really tough schedule. So I'm thinking 4 or 5 losses this year, but it's Michigan football. They're not going to be down for very long, hopefully.
And you'll still get a bowl game at that point, a nice little fun. And I love bowl game. Obviously, I'd rather be in the playoffs, but they're a fun consolation prize because you kind of realize college football has so many damn teams in it. It's like you need these bowl games to recognize these schools and programs. And, a team like Michigan, they'll never be completely down and out, even though they lost their head coach, they lost their quarterback, they lose defenders, offensive pieces, and they're still, I think they'll be hovering around the 25th ranked team, all season, right in that area. Not top 10, not top 15, like they're going to be next year and the years beyond that. But I still think they'll be right around the 25 ranked team mark. Jayla, quick thoughts on Michigan Wolverines?
I mean, you got a natty last year. That's what's important, That's one thing I am happy for y'all and Jim Harbaugh that he got a natty. I got a lot of respect for Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach, a great motivator. But yeah, I mean, hey, Michigan's far ahead than my Gators are, so I can't really say much, man. I feel your pain from that blowout last week. I had to watch Miami come into my team stadium and trying to steal our recruits away like buttholes. So, but anyway, like I said, it's a rebuilding session, man. But at the end of the day, one thing that they cannot take away is that national championship from y'all last year. Y'all guys earned it, and you beat really good teams to get there.
Yeah, Michigan really did. So, Jason, once again, incredible stuff this morning. Take a couple minutes now and just tell the good people kind of, where they can keep up with you guys or how often you guys can be found out there with shows, and just any other words you want to give us. Take a couple minutes. The floor is yours, brother.
Before we get, I want to give the Bucs some props here. What I'm really scared about is the screen game. If we're going to put a lot of pressure on it, last week you guys utilized the screen very well, either wide receiver, running back screen. So I'd watch on that. If you have the over under on your running backs receptions, I'd take the over because I think it's going to happen. That's one way to neutralize Hutchinson coming off the edge. I would take the over on that. I think Lions are going to be a little too much for you guys this week, us being at home, having the home field advantage, but it's going to be a tough game. And if Baker gets out of the pocket and starts running, I'm going to be scared about that. Lions are susceptible to that. As far as what was the other thing that you wanted me to touch on?
Just anything you'd like to share in your final words before we, sadly have to move on. We do thank you for staying long. Again, little technical difficulties to start, so our apologies, but glad you could stick it through, brother.
No, I had so much fun. Me and you, J-Lo, and Tampa, you were awesome on the podcast. You guys, welcome to come on anytime. Whenever we, should cross paths again, maybe playoff time, right? Or even if we just want to talk NFL football, that's great. I loved it. I was really impressed with this whole setup, and thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed myself. The 45 minutes or whatever flew by. I could stay on for another 45 minutes. So it was awesome. So I appreciate you having me on. We, as far as the Talking Grit podcast, we do 2 podcasts a week. The first one is like a Pride preview. Pride preview. We'll preview the next game, the upcoming game. That was the episode that you were on, Tampa. And then we do our recap game, and usually we release that on Tuesday. Just depends on, Lions are kind of all over the map this year and where they're playing, like prime time and all that stuff. So generally we tried to get that out by Tuesday, and we call that a listener gave us the idea. We wanted to come up with a title. He calls it the biting recap, like biting kneecaps. We went with the biting recaps, which I thought was hilarious. And I like a good title that is kind of punny and also, but tells you what you're going to be listening to, right? Where it's not so much decoded. So I love that. I can't give him a shout out yet because he hasn't given me the okay to do that, but it was someone just messaged me and gave me that name. So I appreciate that. But yeah, we're on 2 times a week. Like I said, Jacob and I sometimes, and generally for the Pride preview, we try to find someone as knowledgeable like Tampa, just to learn more about your team and just, talk football. We love talking football. And again, thank you for having me on. I like your setup. I love your fans. You got some good fans down there asking a lot of questions. Thinking about Vita Vea eating on Frank Ragnow. I'm going to remind you last year that Frank Ragnow took Vita Vea into the end zone during the playoff game. He can handle it. But yeah, we don't need Vita Vea getting any more motivation than he already has, because he's a big boy.
Yeah, he is a big boy, and I love that biting recap. That's really cool because
That's dope.
I know everybody probably knows this, but for Bucs fans not as familiar with the Lions, when Dan Campbell took that job there, he said, we're going to get up, bite your kneecaps, and kind of keep getting back up and keep biting your kneecaps. And that's when I kind of bought into the Dan Campbell hype. I'm like, this psychopath is going to be a really good head coach, man, because he gets the guys in order. So, Jason, I think you guys got a good one. J-Lo, any last words for Jason?
No, I was just gonna say I hate to piss Dan Campbell off. He's a big guy, been there, done that in the NFL. I can imagine him scaring the crap out of some of those players, some of those rookies when they first, run the wrong route or they miss a tackle. I could just see him being all over that ass big time. But yeah, it was good having you on, man. Thank you for coming on. Sorry your partner couldn't join us, and most likely we'll probably cross paths again in the playoffs. The way it's looking on my
And even
opinion.
if not, we are a football show. So, Jason, we would love to get you back on a Saturday, say, even if, we don't cross paths again for like a playoff preview or whatever, because I know you guys will be there. So, Jason, we'll definitely cross paths again sometime soon, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. It's great having you on, and all your fans down there that said hi and everything. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, and thank you for making me feel welcome.
Yeah, Jason, we'll
Absolutely.
talk to you really soon, and we'll talk to you guys really soon. And once again, everybody go keep up with Jason, the Bite and Recap, the Pride previews, and so much more at Talking Grit Detroit Lions podcast. Jason, enjoy your Saturday, brother. Hope you and the family have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll be talking soon, Jason. Have a good one, brother.
Yep. Thank you.
That was the great Jason from Talking Grit. JLo, another very great guest on our hands, another great guy who did a great job of previewing the Lions team. I think that was a really fun talk, and looking forward to picking him and his partner's brains down the road again. And then Michigan talk as well. So, JLo, whether it's Lions, Michigan, we are going to get into college football now, and your Florida Gators here as well. JLo, what do you thought about Jason, and thoughts on your Gators today after?
The crowd's for the Gators, not for Jason. Jason was awesome, very knowledgeable. He kind of reminds me of the great Dr. Pless, the way he was breaking down stuff from Bucs Talk. The way he was breaking it down. I felt like I was talking to Michael Pless like a clone instead of talking Lions talk. But shout out to Real Butts. I mean, Real Butts Talk, by the way. Shout out to them. But yeah, my Gators. I'm not really happy. They're starting Graham Mertz against A&M.
What time do you guys play today?
We play at 3:30 on ABC, ESPN, ESPN Plus. So it's gonna be, I don't know. I mean, I'm not expecting much with Mertz in there, but I think they said Lagway was gonna get in and get some plays in there to kind of help, get the ball rolling. A lot of Gator fans are calling for Napier's head right now, because he's pretty much. I mean, I'm pretty much at the point to where I don't think he'll be our coach at the end of the year. I think he will be gone. Unfortunately, he's a great recruiter, a decent motivator, but the discipline, man. They got penalized in the Miami game, which cost 2 scores. You can't do that. You're in year 3. You should have control of your team by now. It just sucks because we're going to lose recruits for it. DJ Lagway, he's the biggest one I'm concerned about because I think he is the future for the program. And when that time comes, but in the meantime, I'm going to keep rooting for my Gators. I mean, I'm hoping Napier proves me wrong. I really do.
And it's time for our college football pick'em, where we take a deep dive into the world of college football today and give you our thoughts. JLo, we're just going to alternate games here to keep the line moving a little bit. Oklahoma State on the road in Tulsa, dropping 17.5. I'll start with this one. Give me Tulsa covering the 17.5. I think it's a little bit of a look-over game for Oklahoma State after a hard-fought battle with Arkansas last week. I like Tulsa and the points. JLo, Alabama given 15.5 in Wisconsin. Who do you like in that one?
I might be crazy, but I like Wisconsin at home because Bama has shown that they are vulnerable to a team that they expected to beat. USF gave them a good run last week, so give me Wisconsin at home against Bama.
Florida State minus 6.5 at home against Memphis. I mean, if it's not now, it's never for Florida State, right? So to me, I'm not going to bet on this game, but if I had a bet, I would take Florida State given the 6.5. They've had a bye week now. They had some time to recover, recooperate, and really this is their season. If they lose, they're just going to fade into oblivion more and more and more and more as the year goes on. This one's a really fun game today, JLo. Ranked against ranked. Boston College is getting 14.5 points on the road as they travel to Missouri, who's had an incredible year. What say you in that showdown?
Man, that's going to be a good game. Man, that was going to be a good one. I got to say, Missouri's at home on this one?
Yep.
Yeah, I say Missouri at home will take that game. Boston College did a good job beating Florida State, but Missouri is a really underrated powerhouse team right now, and I think they'll win at home.
Tulane, Oklahoma, 3:30 Eastern. Tulane, the Green Wave getting 13.5 on the road. They almost upset Kansas State last week in a hard-fought battle. I'm going with Tulane in the points. I think that 13.5 is a sustainable number. Yes, it's a young quarterback. Yes, it's a tough environment in a place like Oklahoma. But I think Tulane has showed me enough this year where, maybe they can't win a ball game, but they can keep it close in that type of ball game. J-Lo? Florida, A&M, 3:30. Florida +4. And by the way, DirecTVers, Disney solved the problem. You guys get college football today. Rejoice. Florida +4 at home against Texas A&M, 3:30 Eastern. Jayla, what say you?
I'm going to be definitely home on this one. It's now or never for Florida too. They need to go ahead and get off to a good start, win at home in front of your crowd, get that first SEC conference win. So give me Florida at home.
Yeah, we got a couple rivalry games today. Washington State, Washington, they do square off. Give me Washington -5.5 home against Washington State in there. J-Lo, Oregon at Oregon State. Oregon State at home getting 17 points in that rivalry. What say you?
I say Oregon on the road. I think they're another underrated team in their conference. Oregon's got a good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I like them on the road against Oregon State.
Notre Dame -7.5 at Purdue today. Notre Dame needs a big bounce back after that awful loss at NIU. I don't know if I would take the 7.5. I think Notre Dame wins today, but I think they win by about 7. I would bump that spread down to 6.5 for a little less money back and take. As our young bloodline member joins now, let's go. J-Lo, West Virginia at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh +2. That game's at 3:30. Pittsburgh was down 21 points on the road last week against Cincinnati late in the third quarter, rallied all the way back, and won that game to remain undefeated. J-Lo, who do you got here? Pittsburgh, West Virginia.
I say West Virginia. I like West Virginia. That's at Pittsburgh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like West Virginia on the road against Pittsburgh. I think it'll be a close game for sure, but give me West Virginia on the road.
Another rivalry, Utah at Utah State. Utah State's getting 18.5 points at home in this one. I'm going to go with Utah laying the 18.5. Utah's been really good this year. Utah State has not, and that's pretty much all that needs to be said about that one. Flipping to the late night now. Our Florida International, the Fighting Anthony Gators, +4, traveling across the Sunshine State of Florida to Florida Atlantic. J-Lo, are you going with the Fighting Anthony Gators getting 4 on the road against FAU?
Absolutely, man. Let's go Anthony Gator. Go Panthers. I think they'll definitely take that one from FAU.
USF, South Florida, -11.5 at Southern Miss. South Florida had a tough game against Bama last week. I think they bounced back. I think they beat South Miss on the road. Not only beat him, I think they destroy him. J-Lo, last local game, UCF at TCU. TCU is giving 2.5 points. That game's 7:30 Eastern tonight.
Oh, tough one. I say TCU at home. I think they'll take it from UCF. I'm not buying UCF hype, whatever, with KJ Jefferson. I saw him play a couple weeks ago. He just doesn't look very good to me. So give me TCU at home.
7:30 tonight. This one's for our guy, Mr. H, who popped up in the chat today. Northern Iowa getting 31.5 points on the road in Nebraska, 7:30 Eastern. Give me Nebraska laying the 31.5. They've looked really good this year. Again, they handled Colorado with ease. The week before, they handled a Texas team with ease. Just one more college game here each before we'll do our NFL pick'em and then bounce out. J-Lo, BYU at Wyoming tonight. Wyoming is at home, 9.5-point underdogs at 9 o'clock Eastern. Who do you like there?
I say give me BYU. BYU, they're a tough program, always, competing. Give me BYU on the road.
I agree with that one, and then I'll end the college football pick'em 10:30 Eastern time tonight. New Mexico State traveling to Fresno State, getting 19.5. Give me New Mexico State in the points. That's a lot of points, seemingly. I know Fresno State played Michigan pretty good and whatnot. But moving from college to NFL ball, J-Lo, we're not going to do spreads. We're just going to do pick 'em. Colts, Packers. What say you?
Colts, man. It's got to be Colts, man.
I'm going with Colts with Malik Willis there. Browns, Jags.
Oof, tough one. I say give me the Browns with the upset. I think the Browns had a tough beat down by the Cowboys, and I think they're definitely going to avoid going 0-2 and give it to the Jaguars.
Someone has to win. I'll do 49ers, Vikings. Give me the Niners in that one on the road in Minnesota. J-Lo, Seattle, New England, 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow.
New England and who, I'm sorry?
Seattle at New England at 1 o'clock tomorrow. New England, 3-point underdogs at home.
I say Seattle. I think Seattle will take care of business. They're not going to pull a Bengal like they did last week.
Jets at Titans. I got the Jets in that one, 1 o'clock Eastern. J-Lo, Raiders at Ravens. Ravens, heavy favorites.
Oh, yeah. Ravens should definitely take that one. The Raiders are just not a really good football team this year so far. I think they're going to run the ball down their throats, on that mark. So give me Ravens at home.
Chargers, Panthers. Give me the Chargers. I think they obliterate them. Fun one here. Saints travel to Dallas, J-Lo. Who do you like in that one?
Oh, Dallas. Dallas is on fire right now. I think at home they should go ahead and expose the Saints who they really are. They're not that talented like everyone keeps hyping it up to be.
Giants at Commandos. Give me the Commandos in that one. J-Lo, Rams, Cardinals, afternoon game, 4:05 Eastern. Who do you like there?
I say Cardinals at home. I think they're going to surprise the Rams, and Rams drop to 0-2.
Wow, that would be pretty surprising. Steelers, Broncos. Give me Pittsburgh on the road after they won on the road last week with Fields. I think they get the job done again this week. J-Lo, this one's fun to me. Bengals at Chiefs. Bengals need this one, but they didn't look good last week. Who do you got?
And they're still not going to look good, man. T. Higgins with a hammy. Jamar Chase with money issues. Burrow's not looking too hot. Chiefs at home.
Bears, Texans. I'll take the Texans at home for Sunday Night Football, 8:20 p.m. kickoff tomorrow. J-Lo, take us home. Falcons, Eagles, Monday Night Football, 8:15 p.m.
Philly at home, man. The Falcons are not good as everyone says they are. Kirk Cousins, enjoy your free money you're going to be stealing from the Falcons. Philly at home.
Now we're going to do our breadwinners segment where we give you guys our bets of the weekend here. We dip into the world of any sport you want. J-Lo, we started off a blistering 4-0. We're still 6-4 collectively, and we're still plus money on the year. I believe we're plus $39 or $49 as a group. So if you guys listen to all of our bets, you'd still be at about a plus $50 rate. Joey's breadwinner is going to be the Dodgers. He's a perfect 3-0 on baseball, so he's like, I'm going to stick with baseball today. He is taking the Dodgers, and the details on that game are as followed. They're plus 108, so if you bet $10, you'd win $10.80 in that one. They're on the road in Atlanta, 7:20 Eastern time over there. So Joey takes the Dodgers with his breadwinner. J-Lo, could be any sport in the world of sports this fine weekend. As Mr. H says, that's a lot of points. I think he's talking about, I'm not sure. Maybe
the Bucs line score, maybe in the comments, that guy said 41.
Or maybe the Nebraska game because he's a Nebraska guy too. But J-Lo, your breadwinner of the weekend, sir.
So I've been doing pretty crappy the last couple ones, but I'm going to go to college football, and I'm going to go take the Wisconsin winner and money line at home. So if you bet $5, you win $31. So give me Wisconsin at home on the money line.
Wisco money line for J-Lo. I like that one. Bama came off a win against South Florida last week, and they're probably smelling and feeling themselves a little bit over there. Looking around, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of tough games here, but I'm going to go with the world of the NFL for my breadwinner. I just think that this one is a nice little parlay you could sink in here. If you take a 49ers and Jets money line parlay tomorrow, that will net you plus 112. If you put $10 on it, you'd win $11.12. So I'm going with Jets and 49ers money line parlay tomorrow. I think that's good value right there. I think 49ers will look good without McCaffrey, and I think Jets will get a win in Tennessee. Tennessee looked terrible last week with Will Levis. J-Lo, in your final word, give us a final word, but also give us a little bit of fantasy football chatter as well. Final thoughts, final word, and fantasy football chatter, J-Lo.
Well, fantasy football, I went 0-3 last week in all three of my leagues.
I heard you lost to a stud in our league.
Yeah, fortunately, congratulations. Your team was a better team. Butthole, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm excited to watch some college football today. As you saw, my wonderful princess popping her head here and there.
She's
She'll be enjoying football with her pops. And as far as back to fantasy football, it's only the first week. I got time to recover. Hopefully, at least one of my teams steps it up and gets me a W. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm trying to think what I'm going to do for the menu-wise. I'm thinking pulled pork, sliders, and maybe some loaded on tater tots, something simple, dimple. Because as you can hear, thunderstorms going on out here. So sorry for the people that waiting in line for Aquaman. But anyway,
yep, thunderstorming out there, huh?
Yeah. Well, let's just say that a lot of my neighbors are not happy and they're very pissed off right now. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, I that's what took me so long to come on, just trying to get through the traffic. But for the most part, I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm hoping I'm wrong in my prediction. I think we got a good chance to get an upset in there. But if not, people, it's not the end of the world. It's only week 2. And we got so much football left. I mean, there's so much football left. And you never know. The Bucs could shock the world and win the game, prove me wrong, maybe eat my words, my crow, for the most part. You know, and then shout out to Jason from their Lions podcast. You know,
Talking Grit.
Talking Grit. Thank you very much. He, you know, like I said, it was fun talking with him. Hopefully, we'll get some more other NFL fans from other teams on the pod. You know, my boy Tones, you're out there working, man. You're scooping the good ones in there. You know, bring them on the pod, going into enemy territory, man. Shout out to you, man.
Thank you very much, J-Lo. Means a lot to me, brother. You're a great friend of mine. So coming from you and your great co-host, that does mean a ton there. But guys, once again, fantasy football in full swing of things. I'm going to give you a little advice. If you're a Jordan Love owner, don't freak out. Don't cut ties with him. Keep him on your IR around if you can. Mr. H, I know it's a lot of points, but I think Nebraska handles him very well. I think, you know, you're looking at a team, Northern Iowa, they're not very competitive, in my opinion, when it comes to these big boy matchups. So give me Nebraska today, laying that many points. As Mrs. H is tuned into the house as well. So, J-Lo, we're starting to get Mr. H, Mrs. H. It's starting to feel like a great, I mean, we got a great crew. We got Christopher Cole, Mr. and Mrs. H, Jacko, Bucs Life, Bucs Raise Bolts, and so many more characters in the house as well. But on behalf of J-Lo, Tampa Tones here, we want you guys to tune in every damn Saturday. We're going to bring you the noise. First half of the show is the NFL Bucs game breakdown. Last half of the show is college football talk, NFL talk, gambling talk, fantasy football talk, and so much more. But as kickoffs are here, we are out. It's J-Lo, Tampa Tones, and the great Jason H from Talking Grit. Touchdown Tampa Bay, K-Dot and over the middle. Touchdown Bucs win. Baker Mayfield, you are ridiculous. Baker Mayfield, my goodness. And the Bucs float off in Detroit. Speaking of floating off, Mr. and Mrs. H, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope to see you guys next Saturday. But next show will be Tuesday. Join us Tuesday. We'll be back reviewing the game against Detroit and previewing the next game against Denver. J-Lo, have a great Saturday, brother. Appreciate you, my friend.
You too, my man. Stay safe.
Go Bucs. Stay safe. Fire the damn cannons. Let's fucking go!
Ah!
Game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little cleared. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little.
No, my camera's broke.